What makes sci-fi and horror from the 1980s stand out so much? Even though these genres have been entertaining cinema goers since the turn of the 20th century, it's interesting how this decade is perceived as a golden age for science fiction, scary films, or a blend of the two. Not only did the era spawn many notable films like An American Werewolf in London, The Terminator, and Predator, it's when the careers of prominent filmmakers like James Cameron, David Cronenberg, and John McTiernan really took off. And when people say they don't make movies like they used to, they're probably referring to the 80s. Before CGI became mainstream in the 1990s, horror and sci-fi had to rely on good old-fashioned techniques like puppetry, animatronics, and prosthetics to bring their visuals to life. As a result, some of the most stunning and innovative visuals ever seen in cinema came from the 80s movies. Although there are some obvious choices on what sci-fi horrors stood out the most during this time, there are a couple of lesser-known films that deserve just as much credit. I'm Sean Ferrick for What Culture Horror, and here are the 10 best sci-fi horror movies from the 80s. Number 10, Videodrome. David Cronenberg is known as a juggernaut in the world of filmmaking, mainly for popularizing the concept of body horror. There were elements of this concept in his early work, such as The Brood and Scanners, but Videodrome helped cement Cronenberg's distinctive film style. In the film, Max Wren runs a TV station that shows violent and sexual programs. Always on the lookout for a new form of entertainment, Wren stumbles upon Videodrome, an obscure channel that focuses on extreme sadomasochism. Believing this sort of entertainment is the next big thing, Wren attempts to incorporate the show into his network. Videodrome has many sickly visuals of humans merging with technology, which was made possible by makeup extraordinaire Rick Baker. Despite a small budget, many of the special effects still hold up. The torso slit is still able to make modern viewers queasy. If you find the film a little incomprehensible, don't worry, everyone does. Videodrome was never meant to be understood, only experienced. It may not be the best Cronenberg movie, but it probably encapsulates body horror better than any of his work. Number 9, From Beyond. In Stuart Gordon's adaptation of H.P. Lovecraft's short story, a scientist called Pretorius builds a Resonator, which endows participants with the ability to detect extra-dimensional life forms. However, the Resonator drives Pretorius mad, urging him to use the machine to transcend humanity. From Beyond has all the best elements one expects from a sci-fi B-movie. It has larger-than-life performances, mad scientists, terrifying aliens, inventive gore, and gruesome kills. What makes this adaptation stand out is the special effects. If you've grown tired of the CGI that has saturated every Hollywood movie in recent years, From Beyond is the perfect film to check out. When Pretorius transforms into whatever the heck it is he transforms into, the filmmakers could have built a single animatronic to stand in for his final form. Instead, the crew built multiple elaborate puppets to showcase each phase of Pretorius' mutation. This doesn't add anything to the plot, but it shows the amount of effort the filmmakers were willing to make to emphasize the otherworldly nature of the story. The film may be a bit campy for some, but it's impossible not to be blown away by the practical effects. Number 8, The Hidden. In The Hidden, a law-abiding citizen suddenly goes on a murderous rampage in LA for seemingly no reason. When the police discover similar crimes across the city, they realize this isn't an isolated incident. The cops soon discover these felons are strong enough to withstand injuries that should kill a regular human. As they come face to face with the criminals, the cops learn that there is a far greater threat looming on the horizon. Despite the fact that The Hidden has an intriguing premise, it could have been ruined if the mystery was explained too early. Thankfully, the film keeps tight-lipped about the origins of the crime waves until the climax, keeping viewers guessing until the very end. Another interesting aspect about The Hidden is how often it changes genre. It switches from horror to action to sci-fi to mystery thriller quite regularly, preventing the film from becoming formulaic. Even though The Hidden was a commercial and critical success, it doesn't get as much attention as other horror flicks of the decade, which is a good reason to give it a look. Number 7, Night of the Creeps. In Night of the Creeps, two nerds accidentally set space worms loose in a campus, turning everyone in the area into undead creatures. Because this film riffs on stories about alien invasions, slashers, and zombies, one would expect the result to be as derivative as possible. And you'd be right. Night of the Creeps covers every cliche in the book, but the movie is fully aware how ridiculous it is. It knows it isn't reinventing the wheel. It's trying to be as entertaining as possible. With its creative gore, amazing action sequences, and wacky humor, Night of the Creeps is endlessly enjoyable and absolutely hilarious. It also has a ton of great one-liners, although none have become as iconic as, "The good news is your dates are here. The bad news is they're dead." Even though the comedy could have undercut the gore, first-time director Fred Decker manages to juggle the two genres perfectly. He proved he had a knack for genre blending for his follow-up, Monster Squad. Whether you're a big fan of comedy, horror, or sci-fi, Night of the Creeps has something for everyone. Number 6. Return of the Living Dead. No one can contest the influence George A. Romero's Night of the Living Dead has had, not just on horror, but on cinema. Not only did it ignite the zombie genre, it proved that indie directors could make a smash hit. Having said that, the films have some dodgy special effects and amateur makeup. Return of the Living Dead may not have been as influential on the zombie genre, but there is no question it has vastly superior special effects. Using animatronic puppets, effects artist Tony Gardner devised some of the most realistic zombies ever seen in any medium. Return of the Living Dead also makes the daring decision to discard the rule that zombies can be killed with a headshot. This makes the film more tense since the characters, as well as the audience, have no clue how to stop the undead. Even though Romero's work embraced comedy, his films were clearly dramas above all else. Return of the Living Dead balances comedy and horror so effortlessly you can't tell whether you're meant to be laughing hysterically or screaming in terror. Number 5. Re-Animator. In Re-Animator, an eccentric medical student called Herbert West discovers how to revive the recently deceased. Urged to cure death itself with his work, it isn't long before West's experiments have cataclysmic consequences. Re-Animator has a lot in common with From Beyond. It has the same director, same lead actor, adapted from the same author, and has the same modern Frankenstein motif. However, Re-Animator cranks everything up to 11. Every time you think it's topped itself in terms of gore and absurdism, the film throws in something crazy like naked zombies or a lopped-off head ordering its decapitated body around. However, it's Jeffrey Combs' performance as the deranged Herbert West that keeps the movie together. Even though he is very much chewing the scenery, he never comes across as parodical since he is completely convincing as his character. Considering this film contains a scene of a decapitated head sexually assaulting a woman, and that's not the most memorable part, it's a testament to how delightfully entertaining Combs is as Herbert. It may not be a masterpiece, but Re-Animator is definitely Stuart Gordon's best film and deserves its status as a cult classic. Number 4. Altered States. In Ken Russell's Altered States, a psychopathologist called Edward Jessup dedicates his career to performing experiments by using sensory deprivation chambers. By consuming hallucinogenic drugs while residing in one of these tanks, Jessup believes he can tap into the memories of his ancestors and use this information to understand God. Altered States interweaves a lot of complex issues, including psychology, the meaning of the universe, unexplained recesses of the human mind, and primitive human history. On top of that, the film is layered with deep religious themes from Abrahamic Christianity, Buddhism, and Native American folklore. Coupled with the fact that the story revolves around hallucinations and dreams, it's no surprise that the film is packed with insane but unforgettable visuals. At no point does Altered States feel like it wants to be understood, which may frustrate some viewers, but whether you love it or hate it, Altered States won't leave you bored, since the concepts it deals with are so intriguing and provocative. After watching it, you can't help trying to understand what you just experienced, much like a dream itself. Number 3. Predator. A lot of sci-fi in the 1980s challenged viewers with multi-layered themes and a thought-provoking story. However, John McTiernan's Predator doesn't do any of that. Instead, it has a straightforward plot about a bunch of mercenaries battling an alien in the jungle. That's what you expect, and that's exactly what you get. But due to its visceral action, masterful suspense, and iconic monster, Predator is pretty much as good as sci-fi gets. Arnold Schwarzenegger and his crew may be cast as stock characters, but each actor performs their role so firmly it doesn't come across as trite. Despite the fact Arnie tends to stand out due to his natural charisma and his ability to churn out iconic one-liners, everyone in the cast acts like they're trying to outdo one another with hilarious dialogue and memorable banter. Even though Arnie was on his way to superstardom at the time, he gets shown up by the Predator itself, one of the most terrifying villains of the decade and a masterclass in character design. Predator has inspired sequels and copycats galore over the years, but the original has never been bettered. Number 2. The Thing. In John Carpenter's The Thing, a group of Antarctic explorers turn on one another after they discover there is a shape-shifting alien among them. Many horror fans are aware of the film tanking at the box office, which is a depressingly common fate for many of the director's features. However, you'd be surprised to learn that critics absolutely hated the movie. Whether it was the dialogue, story, acting, or characters, critics seemed to have a problem with everything. They even hated the special effects, stating they looked faked. Do they watch the same movie we're talking about here? Nowadays, things are very different. The film is now considered a masterpiece, mainly because of Rob Bottin's astounding SFX. Even after 40 years, many cinephiles still consider The Thing to have the greatest practical effects in movie history. There is no question that the animatronics and puppetry steal the show, but that shouldn't take away from everyone else involved. Kurt Russell and the rest of the actors are exceptional in their roles, conveying the paranoia and terror of their characters perfectly. The director was so meticulous at maintaining atmosphere and building tension, you can see why The Thing is regularly perceived as his greatest film. Number 1. Aliens. Not only did Ridley Scott's Alien define his character, it redefined the very concept of sci-fi horror. With the genre overflowing with cheesy B-movies, Alien came along and showed that sci-fi could be nightmarishly terrifying. When the sequel was announced, cinemagoers were excited even though no one expected the follow-up to match its predecessor, especially since James Cameron replaced Ridley Scott as the director. Although Aliens doesn't replicate the novelty of the original, it surpassed it in terms of special effects, acting, and action. Sigourney Weaver gives the performance of her career, bagging an Academy Award nomination. It's worth noting that this was the first time a woman had ever received an Oscar nom for a horror movie. But no matter how good the action is, Aliens could have been brainless popcorn flick if Cameron didn't focus on the human element. Luckily, he makes the viewers care about every character, especially Ripley's relationship with the young orphan Newt. Even though their bond could have been regarded as sentimental and indulgent, watching Ripley take on an entire planet of evil to protect one girl helped make her one of the most badass characters in sci-fi history.